Hi, my name is Jennifer Johnson, and thank you for attending my session today. The title of my session is Going Beyond Debits and Credits, Teaching QuickBooks for Certification Success. I want to spend some time today talking to you about the journey to certification. So one of the things we want to think about is what course are you going to teach this in? What software are you going to use? How do you find the right curriculum? Most importantly, probably, how do we develop our students to grow? And then finally, do I certify? But before I take you on your journey, let me tell you a little bit about my class. So I teach at the University of Texas at Dallas. I'm a CPA, I am an accountant, and the course I teach that focuses on QuickBooks is an undergraduate accounting course. In that class, students come in with already a base knowledge of accounting. That course is traditionally taught live. However, in recent months, we've transitioned to an online or hybrid model. I typically have about 50 students in the class every semester, and currently I am using QuickBooks Online. I have taught QuickBooks Desktop, but have been using the QuickBooks Online for the past several years. The course right now, when we meet live, we meet twice a week, and that's a little bit over an hour for each class meeting. In that class, I combine my normal class instruction where I'm talking about QuickBooks and teaching QuickBooks with practice. So we have project practice days and we have course instruction days. One of the things I'm really dedicated to is allowing the students to help each other learn. I've also implemented something called a networking day, where I bring in outside professionals, folks who use this accounting software as well as other accounting software, to talk to my students and help them understand where they might want to go, what they might want to do, and really just start that networking process for them. I've been teaching this course for several years, and over the course of this time period since 2014, I've had 273 students get certified. Every semester with those 50 students, about 50 to 60% of the class has been sitting for the certification exam recently. And my pass rates, for those students who actually sit for the exam, man, they are passing at a great rate, like 97, 98%. So we've had a lot of success with that certification, and that success turns into confidence and it turns into opportunities for my students to get placed in internships and receive full-time job offers. I have also seen other folks implement QuickBooks in accounting information systems classes, in introductory courses, as well as continuing education classes. So QuickBooks can be implemented in a lot of different ways. But why QuickBooks? Why should I even bother having a class that utilizes QuickBooks? For me, the first and primary goal was to reinforce those principles that they learned in their introductory accounting course. Students are finally getting a chance to understand how accounting concepts are applied. I don't know if you know a lot about how accounting is taught, but we teach accounting a lot in a silo. And by a silo, I mean we teach them little bits of information about how to account for transactions or how to review a report. Unfortunately, when you write a journal entry on a piece of paper or you record that transaction on an exam, that's not really how it works in the real world. So I really wanted my students to be able to understand how QuickBooks works and how what we're teaching them in our accounting classes translates to the software they're going to be using once they graduate from our university. And really, I'm preparing students for not just accounting careers. If you think about it, every single business wants to know, how much money am I making? How do I make it cheaper? How do I save money on expenses? What can I charge for this product or service? So really, what we're preparing our students for is not just accounting, but really business. And Intuit Education is a great partner in this. They help provide the software. Intuit Education has a primary goal to focus on career readiness and getting our finance and entrepreneur students ready for the real world. So that has been a great partner and a great value add to our organization and to our classes. Now, taking the class beyond the debits and the credits. Like I said, our students are finally getting a chance to apply the accounting knowledge that they have learned in real-world scenarios. So they are looking at transactions that we're asking them to record during the course of the class, and they have to think about, is this an asset? What kind of asset is that? Is it a bank account? Is it a fixed asset? Why am I creating this transaction? How does that relate, and how do those things connect? I always tell my students this story. For years, I was a CPA, I worked in public accounting as an auditor. So I would spend time going out reviewing financial statements of other companies. I have a CPA, I have a master's degree, and when I finally left public accounting to go work for industry, my first day on the job, my employer asked me to record a journal entry for some transactions that had happened. Now, I knew how to do the journal entry, but yet again, I didn't. I actually was terrified and really afraid I was going to get fired on that first day. Because you know what? Through all that education, through all those certifications, and all that work experience, I actually had never made a journal entry or used an accounting system. I reviewed a lot and I looked at a lot, but I never actually touched it. So for me, this course really became the anthem. When I started teaching and moved into the academia area, I really wanted my students to make sure that they knew how to apply the accounting that we were teaching them in their courses. Throughout the course of teaching, I always get great comments on evaluations for this class. Students say things like, I really liked this class takes your accounting knowledge and shows us how accountants and bookkeepers actually use it in the real world. Or including the QuickBooks certification as a qualifying exam for the final, and this class was brilliant. Well, of course it was brilliant. It was my idea. But all kidding aside, what does that do for them? With these comments and the feedback I've gotten very consistently semester after semester, it shows me that the students are excited to be learning something practical, that they feel like they can walk out of this class and they can go to their internship or their job and they can really start from day one providing value to their employer. They know how to use the software, they've got confidence in their skills and their ability, and the employers recognize that as well. So I really do love the practical aspect of this, and the certification helps set them apart and helps them be acknowledged for the fact that they know this. One of the questions you will have to ask yourself when you go ahead and implement a course using QuickBooks is, what version of QuickBooks do we want to use? I've taught using desktop, I've taught using QuickBooks Online. There are pros and cons to both sides, and you've got to make the right choice for you, your students, and your school. So let's talk a little bit about both of these models. QuickBooks Desktop. So QuickBooks Desktop has to be installed on a physical computer. The students, when they use that software, have to go to that computer to do that, and it is Windows based. So I know a lot of my university students use Macs. It didn't work for them. Also, you have to have somebody who's going to install that in a computer lab and do the updates. That is kind of a downside of QuickBooks Desktop. But in a lot of cases, some of your students don't have devices and they don't have technology. So offering QuickBooks Desktop in a computer lab where they know they can get to it does help make them feel secure and makes that software available. When you're using QuickBooks Desktop, because you have the license to the software, you can create as many QuickBooks companies as you want for demonstration purposes. So that allows you to give students a wide variety of different types of companies if you wish. And one of the other things that the QuickBooks Desktop software does is it allows you to provide students backups. Let me think. Have you ever had a student that's just kind of messed up something so bad that really it would just be easier to start them over or kind of refresh their software for them? Well, with QuickBooks, and depending on the curriculum that you use, you have the ability then to provide the student a backup, and they can restore that backup and get caught back up in a certain point at a certain time. I don't know about you, but my students have done that before, and that feature is definitely a nice to have. Now, with the benefit of multiple companies and all of these backups, file management becomes a challenge, and honestly, students struggle with that. They have a really hard time managing all the different company files and backup files, and it becomes a little bit of a challenge for them to manage and make sure they are using the right files at the right time. And unfortunately, with QuickBooks Desktop, it's not quite as easy to see what your students are doing or troubleshoot. And by that, here's what I mean. If a student's having a problem and you're live with them in class right next to them on the computer, sure, you can see what they're doing. But what if they've gone home to do their homework or we've had to transition to online courses? Then it makes it a little bit more challenging and students have to deliver to you a backup file that you have to restore and use from that perspective. Not impossible. It's very easy to do that. It just takes a little bit of time and a little bit of effort. As I mentioned, Intuit Education is a great partner, and one of the things they do is they provide us free software. So QuickBooks Desktop is provided free to students with a 5-month license. Well, that's a look at desktop, some of the pros and cons. Let's talk about QuickBooks Online. QuickBooks Online is in the cloud. That means it's technology agnostic. It doesn't matter if you have a Windows-based computer or a Mac. As long as you have got access to the internet, you're golden. And it's pretty easy to activate the software and get the data set up. You do, however, only have access to one company file. So in that case, you are only going to be working on one company file all semester long. There are no backups in the QuickBooks world, so you can't really restore them from a starting point though. They do have to kind of find and fix all of their mistakes to keep up with the work and that one company file. One of the things I love most about QuickBooks Online is the ability for me to troubleshoot. As an educator, you get access to QuickBooks Online Accountant. I have my students invite me to be their accountant every semester. That's just like how it would work in the real world if I was their CPA or bookkeeper for a company. And that company invites me to access their books. Now, in this case, as their accountant or their educator, instructor, I can go see what they're doing. I can log in from any time, anywhere, as long as I've got internet access, connect to their company file, and troubleshoot. It makes answering questions a whole lot easier. They might ask me, well, what did I do wrong? Why am I getting this result? Instead of having to share a whole bunch of screenshots, I can just log into their file and see what might be going on. That gives me the ability to provide some hints and ideas. I never, ever, ever change anything in the student company file, but I do look at it. The other thing that helps with is academic integrity. I make sure they're actually doing their own work. And just like with desktop, Intuit Education provides access to the QBO Plus for 1 year. Now there's one other small thing about QuickBooks Online I should share with you. QuickBooks Online, because it is in the cloud and because Intuit manages it, they deliver updates kind of when and where they want, versus the desktop version that you can control the updates to. So you might be working in QuickBooks Online one day and all of a sudden a new button appears, or there's a new process to do something. Honestly, it can be a little challenging for instructors. My students don't seem to have a lot of trouble with it though. Students are really used to technology changing and things, changing and moving around. They're a whole lot more adaptable than I think we are as educators sometimes. So what that does though is it gives them a great story to tell. If the software changes, if things change mid-semester, mid-course, then they get the challenge of figuring out how it works alongside of you. But they get to tell that story to recruiters. They get to talk about that time the software changed in the middle of the semester and they had to figure it out. And by figuring out, that really helps improve their confidence. It shows them that they have the skill set and the ability to get through a lot of different situations. So that's the difference between QuickBooks Desktop and QuickBooks Online in a really simple nutshell. The challenge is picking the one that's right for you. Some things to consider as you're going through this. What's the purpose of your class and your curriculum? Does one software provide that versus the other? What are the needs of your students? Do you have technology available for them? Is internet access readily available? Are you going to be in a computer lab and can you use a desktop version? How consistent or flexible do you want to be, and which one is more important? We all know our own strengths and weaknesses, and some of us can flex quicker and faster than others, and some of us really like things to be pretty steady state. That's great for either one of those choices. You've got to pick the right software that fits that model for you. And then what technology capabilities do you have? How much do you know? How skilled are you in this area? And what is technology and skills does your school have? What kind of support are you going to get? I know a lot of schools right now, when we transitioned to online teaching during the pandemic, if they had QuickBooks Desktop, then students were just kind of stuck. If they couldn't install that software on a device or something that they had, they couldn't continue with the course. QuickBooks Online, like I said, is available through an internet browser. So it made that transition pretty easy. Also, some schools don't have the luxury of a computer lab or that kind of technology. So it might be easier to use QuickBooks Online. On the other side, your school might need to keep those students in a computer lab. It might be the only lab they have access to. So think through these ideas before you make your choice, and you always can switch. The software is different, it works a little bit differently, but at the end of the day, the fundamental principles of the QuickBooks software are the same. Okay, so you've decided you're teaching the class, you've decided what type of software you're going to use, now you've got to go pick the curriculum. I'm pretty sure you're not going to be writing your own. So first and foremost, what's your course objectives? What are you trying to achieve? Are you just trying to get an introduction to the software where you kind of fly by it and they do a few things? Where you need just a how-to book? Or are you really trying to challenge their accounting skills and you want to implement this in a higher level course or a second year course so that they can really apply their knowledge? Think about your objectives, think about what you want to do. Also, obviously, we ask the question, is it a printed physical book or is it an ebook? And as I mentioned, updates happen. QuickBooks Desktop gets updated about once a year. However, there's not typically drastic changes year over year. QuickBooks Online has gone through quite a few changes over the years, and books tend to get outdated a little bit quicker. Also, how would your publisher or the provider of your material notify you of updates, right? Make sure that you know how you're going to get informed when the software changes. Think about the assessments you want to do. Are you just having them do practice exams or practice exercises where they might be utilizing just the software? Or do you really want to challenge their knowledge through quizzes or midterms or finals or extra projects like analyzing financial statements? And definitely grading. I mean, we are all busy instructors, and having to take hours upon hours to grade can be a challenge. So there's a lot of tools and features with a variety of the curriculum that offer automatic grading. So make sure you understand how that works within the curriculum you choose. Also, LMS. Does your curriculum integrate into your learning management system, and is that even necessary? And finally, is there any supplemental material that you might need? All great questions. They're very common questions you would ask assessing any curriculum, but I think the updates is definitely important, and making sure you have the right type of questions to meet your course objective. I've provided two major resources here. First is Intuit Education. On their website, they have a comprehensive list of publishers that provide all sorts of different textbooks for QuickBooks Desktop and QuickBooks Online, as well as some Intuit branded products that you can download and utilize. Certiport obviously also has some materials. They've got LearnKey and Gmetrics, and they've also partnered with certain publishers to provide textbooks for you as well. So there's a lot of different opportunities out there for you to learn and for your students to learn. All right, so now we've got the course, we've got our materials, we're getting ready to go, and class is running and going great. Here's one of the things I allow my class to do. I allow them to do group work. And the reason for that is I have found over the years that definitely helps them develop and grow. It builds their confidence and improves their skill set using the software. I was not a believer at first. At first I thought, group work? Oh my goodness, that means they're cheating. That's not what it means in this case. I've got a very specific set of rules they have to follow. And honestly, I love group work day. I love what I call project day because we have accounting conversations, which is ultimately dorky and nerdy to say, but accounting conversations are awesome for accounting students. They may have never actually talked about accounting stuff before. And here in class, when they're working together on their homework, they are talking about, what account do I use? What type of transaction is going on? Why does my report say this and yours says that? So group work is great, and it has a lot of added benefits. Now, I do have some rules. You can talk about an assignment to your classmates. I actually encourage it. My second rule is help each other figure out what to do. You're going to learn better. And by the end of the semester, we can definitely pinpoint our power users. Those are the ones that the students have also figured out to go to for help. But those students are rock stars, right? They are going to go out on day one of their internship or their job, and their confidence level is going to be so high in their ability to troubleshoot and find and fix problems that employers are just going to eat that up. But the most important rule is number 3. You have to do your own work in the software, and by golly, I am going to check on you. Because I trust them, but I'm going to verify it. Like, I don't trust them quite that much. No, and especially with the QuickBooks online software, I'm able to go in as the accountant and just make sure that they're doing things. So you can give them freedom, you can give them this ability, but you can also check up on them. I also have this phased approach to helping them out. Those of you who are parents probably can appreciate this as well. Right, so I've got a couple of kids, they're teenagers now, but they in the past have always been like, Mom, where's my shoes? Mom, where's my sweater? Where's my backpack? Right? They've asked you all those questions. And as a parent, we want to help. So we're really quick to respond, oh, sweetie, the shoes are right where you left them by the couch. But then we figured out if we kept answering their questions, then they would never learn how to take care of themselves and grow up and leave the house. It's the same thing with our students, right? You want to be helpful, you want to be available, but if you keep answering their questions all the time and don't challenge them to think, then you are not helping them. So I phase up and I back off as the semester goes on. I start at the beginning of the semester, I'm super responsive, like, you send me an email, I am on it, getting right back to you. Because I don't want them to get frustrated. Frustration using new software leads to folks giving up. So make sure that you're responsive, make sure you're encouraging and helping them move forward. But as the semester moves on, back off, right? Take a little bit longer to answer their questions and intentionally maybe wait till the next morning. Because you know what? Here's what happens. You get emails like this. You get a student that sends you an instructor or a question that says, I'm short, I don't know what's going on, help. They're all panicked and nervous. And then a little bit later, they respond back and they're like, forget that. I figured it out. Disregard my last email. I love those emails. I love that day because that tells me they have really mastered it. They've gone from being really needy to being super independent, and they are ready to go out into the world and use this software. Even just last semester when I had to transition to teaching online, we did the same thing in chat. I made myself available for them, but not always would I answer their chat question right away, right? And again, you can see this person actually just decided to actually read something and figured it out themselves. So be their advocate, be their guide, be their cheerleader. But as you move throughout your course with the students, back up and let them struggle. Let them make mistakes. Let them learn it. Because you know what? We can always help them fix the mistakes. But if we don't give them the ability to fail, they're going to fall on their face in the real world. I also give my class multiple attempts on homework. I don't give them multiple attempts on quizzes or exams, but on homework I do. Because that actually increases their learning. They are going to see right away, get that immediate feedback, what they have right, what they have wrong. And if they're doing it the right way, then they're going to use that as an opportunity to go troubleshoot, to go investigate, to go find out what happened and how to fix it. Again, that makes for a much more independent and confident student. So I let them do unlimited practice attempts in the test drive company. I don't even take grades on that. Then when we get to our homework, they have unlimited tries on their homework. It is for a grade. I obviously take their best grade by the due date. But then when we give them quizzes, we give them exams, you get one attempt. So this is your chance to show me that you've actually learned this material. Those students who have been really diligent about their homework, about understanding how to fix their problems and troubleshooting, they do really well on quizzes and exams under this model. So I kind of tier up their knowledge, I tier up what's going on, and make it a little bit more challenging as they move throughout their different types of assessments. Those of you who might have to transition or prepare to teach this course in a truly online model, it's completely possible. You can do this. Let me give you some tips and tricks for what we've seen and what we've done with this. First and foremost, I provide online office hours. Since I don't have a live project day to sit down next to them to work on it, I make sure I'm available to answer questions. I pop open my Microsoft Teams or whatever other chat tool you're using for your school, and I'm just there. I'm present. And they know they can find me there. So I think just that comfort level really helps them out. It encourages super quick questions, and honestly, sometimes I just chat to them and I'm like, hey, how's it going? Everything okay? They like that interaction. They like knowing that you're there for them. Now, then, depending on how your online teaching is, if you're synchronous or asynchronous, I've got a couple of different tips for you. If you're teaching in a synchronous model, then one of the things I love to do is I love to have my students teach, right? Take a little bit of a break, let them do it. But don't just spring it on them, right? Make sure you've kind of prearranged it. You've asked for a volunteer ahead of time and let them know, hey, on Friday, I really need you to demonstrate this for the class. That would be awesome. Make it a participation grade. I also ask for volunteers. Now, I found in my synchronous teaching in the online world, you have the same problem with volunteers. There's those one or two people who volunteer for everything, and then there's those like crickets. You never hear from them, right? So make sure you're asking for volunteers, but also call students by name. Call out to them, hey, Caroline, I noticed you haven't answered any questions in a few days. Could you possibly step up on this one? I think you really know how to do this. They love to hear their name. Don't we all love to hear our name being called? So yeah, call them by name. And then I do polling questions throughout the class to get their feedback. In our school, we don't actually have them turn on their cameras, so I can't see their faces, which is hard, right? We want to see if they're learning. We want to see that feedback. So I do polling questions. How's it going? Did you get this? Do you understand that? And I make sure that that helps me gauge where they are in the learning process. Now, if you have to teach in an asynchronous model, definitely do weekly quizzes or some kind of survey to check it in with them. I will ask them to do a discussion post every week to provide me insight about what they found challenging or what they found to be most useful. Or have them do a status report. Many of us might have to do status reports at our jobs, so maybe get them used to doing that. Set up a template for them. Ask them to click about how many attempts they did on the homework. What are they going to do next week to study better? What are they going to encourage other students to do to help with that group teaching? And then there's a lot of really cool tools like Screencastify or Flipgrid that allow students to record things and provide you feedback that way. So be creative. It is not impossible to teach a software course online. It's an online software that I use. I might as well teach the course online as well. And then last but least is the certification. So as I said, I've got about 60% of my class that certifies every semester. It is optional, and I do allow students to choose to do that or take a final exam. In my world, it's optional because students have to pay for the certification themselves. So I don't want to put a financial burden on them if it's not necessary. But like I said, many of them are going to do this certification. And it really matters to them. They love the fact that when they're done with the certification and they've passed it, they can go put a badge on their LinkedIn profile. One of the students who tagged me this semester, right, I asked them to put the badge out there, tag the school, let us all see that and be proud of your accomplishments. The employers see it too. The employers know that when a student is certified as a certified QuickBooks user, that means they know how to use this software. From day one, they know how to hit the ground running and provide value to the organization. So it encourages them, it makes sure that they've got some kind of skill set and clearly sets them apart from a lot of other candidates. So I think certification is definitely important, and I encourage my students to do that at any opportunity that they can. Now, how do you prepare for the certification? Because we want them to be successful. First and foremost, the QuickBooks Certified User Exam is not a simulation. It is an objective test. It's asking you things like, how do you do this in QuickBooks? Where do I go? What do I click? So the students who are really good at using QuickBooks sometimes struggle with translating that into objective type questions. So the exam is all objective. It's 50 questions for 50 minutes. So they really need to have some practice tests, whether that is using geometrics to go through some practice tests and the practice question database, or if your book publisher provides some kind of practice exam for the certification. As you are going through the semester, create quizzes for them. You just taught them some steps on how to invoice a customer. Ask them questions about it. Where was this located? What's the difference between these types of transactions? What happened behind the scenes? How do I delete something? Make them think about what they've done, verbalize it, and explain it. That way they're going to do so much better on that certification exam. Now, the objectives of the certification exam are listed here on the right-hand side. The percentages indicate how those topics are weighted across the exam. And this is available for you on the Certiport website. What I've done is I've gone back through my class performance for the past year, and I've identified areas where my class actually doesn't do as well as other topics. I have a great pass rate. My students mostly all get certified. But it doesn't mean they're perfect and they make perfect scores. They still struggle. So I've got a really pretty good historical background and a very consistent background about where they do well and where they struggle. And you can see here they do great in setup, sales and money in, and customization and time saving. They don't do so well with list management and reports. So you can see this information as well about your students once they take the exam, but I thought I would share that with you because I've got a pretty good foundation in terms of what they're doing and how they can do it better. But for the most part, I think one of the biggest benefits, or not the benefits, one of the biggest things you can do to help get your students certified is to provide them exam questions, right? Make sure that they are able to translate that application by using the software into objective type questions. So right now, Certiport is offering students to be able to certify from home. That is a great feature that they implemented due to the current situations that are going on with the pandemic. So hopefully that will continue, but stay tuned to Certiport's website for more information on that. This semester in May, that's how my students certified. We had no issues, no problems, and everything worked as planned. I thought it was great. And I had very consistent results with previous time periods. So as going through today's journey, we've talked about how to pick your software, how to focus on your course, the curriculum you're going to use, ways we can help our students get better, and their final journey to that certification. So I would love to talk with you more about using QuickBooks. You can reach out to me during this conference, or you are welcome to send me a direct message, and here is my email address. So thanks for participating, and I look forward to hearing from you soon.